So, is this car haunted? Well, it might be. You know, I've been lucky enough to have a couple of handfuls worth of cars in my life, and occasionally someone has asked me what my favorite car I ever had was. And the answer to that question is my 1990 Saab 900 Turbo Convertible. I absolutely loved that car for a myriad of reasons, and selling it is one of the very few regrets that I actually have in life. And now I have another one. This is a 1989 Saab 900 Turbo Convertible, so pretty close to the exact same car. This one does have the far more desirable 5-speed manual transmission. My 1990 was a 3-speed automatic, which was a bit of a bummer, but I loved it anyway. And the previous owner of this Saab 900 Turbo Convertible owned it for 15 years. I knew him very well. He kept excellent care of the car. It's in very good mechanical condition. He spared no expense when it came to maintenance. And I did not want this car because the previous owner was my father, and he passed away last September. So I guess kind of sort of technically I inherited this thing. So I'm going to make a little video on it today, just showing some of the various quirks and features of the Saab 900 Turbo Convertible, the classic ones in particular, because that's what this is. I'm not going to go into super duper detail. I already made a video a couple of years ago on another Saab 900 that I had where I went over things laboriously. I will put a link to that video in the description if you care, but for now we're just going to look at some of the unique things about this particular car. Now we'll start back at the trunk, and there are a few things worth talking about here. All classic 900s are noted for their cargo space. Of course, the convertible body style had the least amount of any of these models, but it does still have enough space to fit a fully grown male of Chinese descent into the trunk. Full body, trunk closed. Of course, I know this because of my previous ownership of a 900 Turbo Convertible, and I'm not going to get into the details of this particular incident or name any names. Suffice to say that this person is still alive and well. It wasn't like an opening scene of Goodfellas type of a situation, but I will send him a link to this video just so he knows I gave him a little bit of a shout out. Now, it should be noted that the convertible tops in these classic 900 convertibles were hydraulically operated, and this one still works, thank God. But if it didn't, it wouldn't be that big of a deal because there is a little release valve that you can turn in the back to unhook it from the hydraulic system and make it manually operated. One more thing to note in the rear of this 900 Turbo is I'm pretty sure this exhaust is not stock. Most of the classic 900 turbos of this era had a single oval-shaped exhaust outlet. This one's got the dual chrome tips. And also the mufflers in this car are not stock either. They needed to be replaced not long after my father bought it, and he took it to some muffler shop in Carson City, and they put inverted glass pack mufflers on it, which I guess is an old hot rodder trick to make the car quieter. It sounds all right. I'll give you a listen. It's just not quite as deep of a tone as the original factory turbo muffler would have been. We'll move along to the back seat, and there's a couple interesting things back here. Back when I had my 1990 and it was my daily driver, I did used to have people ride back there, so they are kind of useful, although I imagine not the most comfortable. I've never ridden back there, of course. I always love the interior lights in the back seat of a classic Saab 900 Turbo Convertible. I don't know why, they're just kind of funny little places to put them there. I guess that's the only place they had. Obviously, no other classic 900 has the interior lights there. And Saab also built in sort of holes that you could use to put a wind deflector up. Obviously, my father made use of that. That was one of his favorite accessories on the car, so nobody's really ever sat in the back seat of his. One other thing is the rear floor mats are still in the car, and these are still the original factory floor mats. And how do I know? Well, if you turn around and look at the back of the floor mat, it says Saab all over it. What other auto manufacturer bothered to do that? Now we'll move along to the front seat and talk about some of the stuff up here. And of course, no discussion of an old Saab would be complete without mentioning the weird place the key is down in between the seats. It's been debated by Saab people for many years as to why this was done. I've heard that it's because Saab built airplanes before they built cars, and that's where the ignition key is on an airplane. I don't know that airplanes ever had ignition keys, but Saab started building cars in like 1947. So maybe back in 1947, planes had ignition keys. I've also heard it's so that the keys are not up by the steering column. If you're in a front end collision, that could injure your knee if the keys that are on your keychain hit the knee. And I've heard that it is a theft deterrent because when this car was shiny and new, you couldn't get the key out unless you had the shifter in reverse. And it's a lot harder to break a transmission lock and move a car that's stuck in gear than to break a steering lock and steal the car that way if the key is on the steering column. I don't know, maybe they just did it to be different. Now, another thing I'll note up here is this particular Saab was fully loaded from the factory. Now, all of the turbo convertibles came very well equipped, but this one has the optional graphic EQ for the premium sound system and the auxiliary gauge package, which I call the rally gauges. Now, I had the EQ in my 1990 turbo convertible, and my 1985 900S had the gauges, but this one has both. Unfortunately, neither of them work, probably because this car's like, whatever, 33 years old. And the graphic EQ wouldn't work because my father put in an aftermarket stereo system, but it's cool to see that they were both there. And there may be a reason. I have the original owner's manuals, and if you open that up, you will see that the first owner was a gentleman named Robert Columbi. And Robert Columbi is professionally known as Bobby Columbi, and I apologize if I am mispronouncing his last name. And he was the original drummer for the band Blood, Sweat, and Tears. So this was a celebrity-owned car when it was first purchased from Studio City Saab back in 1989. Another thing to note about this classic Saab 900 is the odometer. They pretty much always break, and this one is no exception. I was with my father when he bought this car in 2006. He bought it private party, obviously, and we test drove it, and I remember we reset the trip odometer to see if the real odometer was working when we test drove the car, and of course it wasn't. So in the 15 years that my dad owned this car, apparently he only put about 556 miles on it. It does work very sporadically, but who knows how many miles are on this thing. I would guess it's well over 200,000, but there you go. It says it's only got 114, so that's going to help with resale value, I assume. One other thing I'll mention is the quality of the leather in this car. Saab always used excellent quality leather back in the day, and this car could definitely stand a full detail. I cleaned it up a little bit this morning, and the leather could be sewn up a little bit, but considering how much my dad drove this car with the top down, the leather is just in amazing shape still, in my opinion, and the seats are really comfortable. The interior of this car really is a nice place to spend time. And of course, for fun, we'll have a look under the hood. One thing to note on the theme of this car being fully loaded is it has the red box, APC. APC stood for either automatic pressure control or automatic performance control, depending on who you ask. It's basically a boost controller for the turbocharger. Saab was kind of an innovator in turbocharged technology, and that was one of their innovations. The red box is the higher performance variant of it. Famously, that went in all Saab 900 SPG, Special Performance Group models. I think you could have it as a dealer-installed option on other models. Maybe the drummer from Blood, Sweat, and Tears spec'd it on this car, and it apparently makes the car a little bit faster. My 1990 had a black box, and I know this one goes deeper into the boost, but that's all I really know about it. The car's quick enough, but it's not a hot rod. I will note that this is a 16-valve, 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. Saab was the first manufacturer to put that group of parts together, and nowadays probably 50% of the cars you could buy have some variant of this engine. That's possibly an exaggeration, but 40% probably isn't. This is an incredibly common version of a gasoline internal combustion engine, and Saab was the first to kind of put this blueprint together as far as all these different parts, and everybody then went on to copy them, and then Saab went out of business. I'll tell you one more story about this car. So my family lives in the South Lake Tahoe area, and last year they were evacuated for the massive Caldor fire in California that you may have heard of. And they were evacuated to Carson City, and that was actually where my father fell ill and died, because they were evacuated for a couple of weeks. So of course, we ended up going up there, and I was up there when he passed away and everything, and his car was there. And we had to get his car back to the house. And my mother still lived in the house. They were still married when he passed away. And obviously, this was a difficult thing for her. So thankfully, my sister was there, and we were able to handle getting this car from the hotel in Carson City to the house back up in Tahoe. And I'm very meticulous about automobiles, and my father was not in great health before he passed away, so he hadn't been driving this car very much. So the morning before we left, when they reopened the roads and lifted the evacuation so we could go home, I got in the car, I started it, checked all the fluids, drove it over to the gas station, looked at the tire pressure, checked the tire pressure, everything was fine, drove it back, turned the engine off. Okay. 2 hours later, we get everything in the hotel room packed up, come out to the car. I try to start it, and it's dead, dead. Nothing happening. So flag my sister down. She's driving out of the parking lot. I say, hey, I need to jump. Pop the hood, and I look, and somehow the positive battery cable has been completely disconnected from the battery. I don't know how that happened. It doesn't really make any logical sense to me why it could have happened. Because I had literally 2 hours before started it, driven it to the gas station, driven it back with no issues. And when I drove it back and parked it, I didn't pop the hood and look at anything. So I don't know. Is this car haunted? It might be. Now there's one other thing that I will point out about this car. There's a little spot of kind of white paint on the back window on the driver's side here that I couldn't get off with Windex. And I'm 99% sure that what that is a mark that the Forest Service or the El Dorado County Sheriffs or somebody would have put on the window of this car 15 years ago when the Angora fire happened. That was in 2007. And that mark was to show that you lived in the area, and they would let you in because they were only letting people that lived in one particular area get in there. So that was kind of scary. That happened very not far from where I'm standing now. And it kind of just goes to show you that you can live in a beautiful forest, and you better enjoy it every day, because it's possible that it could burn down, and you could have a wonderful father, and he could give you everything in the world, and someday he'll be gone. So appreciate all your loved ones while they're here. Dad, if you're watching, I hope you liked my video. He was a subscriber, so I wouldn't need to tell him to subscribe. But anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. It was not an easy one for me to make, but I think I got through it. And have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.